All right. Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with our first media availability today here at Martinsville Speedway. In advance of the STB 500 race, we're now joined by Chase Elliott, driver of the number 9 NAPA Auto Parts Chevrolet. Chase, you've had a pretty close, almost winning here. What are your emotions going into the race?
Yeah, we've had our last 2 races here have been much improved over the first couple, and we're not real sure why that has been, but it's been a better track for me. That this has been one of my worst places and one of the places that I personally feel like I've struggled at a lot. So to have a couple good runs here the past 2 races has been nice, encouraging. Had a car good enough to compete for a win here last time. We were close this race last year, but definitely better in the fall. So learned some things, and my emotions are just excited and looking forward to the weekend and an opportunity to go and try to compete for a win.
Perfect. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and open it up to questions. Raise your hand. We'll get a mic to you. We'll start here in the back.
Kind of what's your thoughts about going there second year with the repave?
Yeah, gonna go and take a trip with some friends next weekend, so I'm looking forward to that. It's always nice to be able to go and get away a little bit, so I'm gonna enjoy it. And as far as Texas goes, we actually got the test there in January, I guess, so we didn't have a very good test. I didn't feel like in January, but a lot's changed since then, and we've got a chance to bring our cars back from the West Coast and work on some things. So I hope that's going to help our cause there, and we can try to get rolling.
And go here in the front.
Mike Embry, USA Today. What's your perspective on why so many drivers have trouble getting tuned into this track? Even some of the all-time greats didn't win here. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, if I had won a race here, I would feel better about having an answer. But this place is just so for me. I can't speak for other guys, but I did a lot of short track racing, kind of coming up, trying to make it here, and still enjoyed short track racing. But this place is just not at all anything like any short track that I raced at. Now there are guys that race short tracks at different parts of the country that had places like this, but we just didn't. The Montgomerys of the world and the Gresham, the old Peach State racetrack, Lanier, Pensacola, Opp, Alabama, all those places that we raced at a lot were just nothing like this. To me, they drive more like the mile and a halfs do and the wore out mile and a halfs. So it's just a different animal, having the corners be so tight. It's a very finesse racetrack. You really have to find a rhythm here and be able to repeat that rhythm to the, within a few inches every lap, I feel like, to really make the difference. So it's just different, and I don't know if that's the same for other guys, but I think that's been my struggle point is kind of everything that I've learned short track racing and the habits that I've kind of taught myself and the ways I've been stuck in just do not apply here, which is very, very, very hard to get yourself out of those habits.
John Haverland with ESPN Albuquerque. Chase, obviously you ran super well here last year, and obviously Jimmie's been very successful here as well. Entering this weekend, have William and Alex looked to both of you guys, in terms of, advice, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I probably more Jimmie than me. I can barely help myself here, so I think they should definitely lean on him. And his success here has been very consistent over a long period of time. So I would, if they come to me, I'm pointing them to him.
Okay, we're gonna take a question from the back. Make our way to the front.
Aaron McFarling with the Roanoke Times. Chase, I know you said frequently that the near misses that you think about the most are the ones where you had more control as a driver. But obviously the scene that unfolded in October here, how much have you thought about that and what it would have meant to finish the way it looked like it was going to finish, and your thoughts now having some time to reflect on what happened?
Yeah, I mean the coulda woulda game, doesn't really matter. I mean there was a lot that was laying on that race. It wasn't just a win; it was a chance to get a race for a championship. So that was obviously had a lot of implications. But I mean, it doesn't matter. It didn't happen. I can't turn back time. So we all kind of know the implications and the things that could have been, but they weren't. So no point in really getting caught up in it too much.
I'm going to go here to Jeff.
Jeff Gluck from jeffgluck.com. Along those lines, it's been everywhere this week. It's all over Twitter, and it's in commercials, it seems like. Every time you see that, because I'm sure it's unavoidable for you, like, what does it bring back the memories? You cringe? You just say, like, nah? Like, what's your reaction every time you see it?
My reaction is everybody's got to try to write a story, right? So it's been a long time ago. Last October to now has been a good while back, and like I said a second ago, I can't do anything about it. So for me, when I think about that night, I try to make myself think about the characteristics and things that our car was doing that made us good, and just try to run laps in my head and try to, I remember a lot, of that night, and when your cars are good, a lot of times I feel like you remember certain things about them, and you just try to think back on the small things that were making the difference, that were allowing us to have the performance we had, and something for me to think about to try to apply this morning, and hope that we can get our car driving like that. And if we can, hopefully we'll have more opportunities and be in that position.
We go here in the second row.
Mark Garrow, PRN. Chase, with what happened last fall and subsequently at Phoenix, is it something that a driver eventually has to draw a line in the sand two ways? Number one, I am willing to move a guy to win if I have to, and if somebody strays over the line too far, then I have to take action. Do you feel like there was a message sent in this race and at Phoenix that every driver has to eventually send?
I guess so. I mean, I think you race people how they how they race you, and that there's there's a difference in moving a guy out of the way and them being able to move on and finish, and them not. So I think that's a tough thing, and it's to be honest with you, it's very difficult to move guys out of the way. It's easy to make a mistake and to wreck them. I'm probably not good enough to move them out of the way and not wreck them. So for me, I just better figure out a way to pass them. Without touching them would probably be the best option. But there are going to come times where you're going to be racing hard and you're going to touch and you're going to move guys and people aren't going to be happy, and that's part of it. But yeah, there's definitely, you got to draw a line somewhere, or like I've said before, you're going to get taken advantage of. So that applies anywhere in life.
Do you feel like that you get more respect now on the racetrack a little bit more now that people kind of understand where you're willing to call it?
I mean, to be honest with you, I haven't really had a whole lot of issues with a lot of people. I try to show respect to guys that show me respect, and I think there's been a very mutual understanding there. So there's a lot of guys I enjoy racing with. There's some guys I don't, that don't enjoy racing with me, which is fine. That's their opinion. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. So, I think it all kind of makes the world go around. So, yeah.
We'll go here.
Brian Nelson with Motor Racing Network. So it's been kind of a mixed bag for not just the 9 team, but all of HMS so far in the year. But you've had some big tracks to establish the program with Vegas, Atlanta, and then last week. How do you sum up, and assess where you as you and the 9 team are, and then HMS as a whole?
Well, I mean, I think we're obviously not where we want to be. First and foremost, I'm not going to lie about it and say that I think everything's perfect. It's never perfect, but I think Phoenix was a good race for us. Jimmie ran pretty well at Fontana, so I feel like there's been some light here and there. We just got to figure out what it takes for all of us to have that success, or for all of us to be solid and to do it on a consistent basis. So I've been very pleased with our team. I think that we've been, last week was not a very good run at all. I wouldn't consider last week this being the case, but I think the other races we've made the most of what we had, and the execution of our races have been pretty good, I feel like, for the most part. Obviously didn't finish a couple, wrecking at Daytona, wrecking at Vegas, but we were fast at both of those places, or, better. Vegas, I don't think we had anything for the guys to win, but, we could run midway through the top 10, so I'm not deflated personally. I think that our team and myself and Alan have a very similar mindset with where things are at, and we're just trying to make the most of what you can week in and week out. And I think that, I know that he can build a race car and come to the racetrack that is capable of winning, and I think that he believes in me enough to know that I can come and compete with guys to win races. And I think as long as that trust is there, then the rest of it, it may take time, or it may not. But I think as long as that understanding is there, it'll all work out.
We'll go here.
Hey, Chase, Al Pierce from Auto Week. A question not about last fall,
Man,
and not about
nice
your
job.
team, and not about you.
My man.
You've been racing against and with Jimmie Johnson 4 years now.
Yeah.
More so than his other teammates. Do you see any difference in the way he's driving a race car now? Is he more hesitant, more cautious, less aggressive? Because he's in the middle of the worst slump easily of his career. Is he a different driver now than he was 2 years ago?
I'd like to have his slump. I don't know about everybody else, but man, no. Look, everybody tries to ride on the age thing, and that is just so not true. You don't forget how to drive. You don't change your driving habits. You don't just do all that in the course of a couple years. I mean, the guy is still one of, if not the greatest driver ever to ever come through NASCAR. I would probably say the best ever, without question. So I just, to make accusations that he's not as good as he once was is just simply not true for anybody. I'm not saying you are, but for anyone to think that is not the case. I can assure you, if the man has a car that's capable of going to run well and to run inside the top 5 and lead laps and dominate races, he's probably going to be doing that. So I expect him to get back to that dominance that he's had. If he has the cars and opportunities to do that, I definitely think he will. So, no, I don't see any difference, really with him.
Okay, we're going here. We're going in the back.
Hey, Chase, Joe Thomas, WCHV in Charlottesville. 2 back-to-back on the slump, but also generally HMS this year. How much of that has to do with the new aero of the Camaro? How much is important for having experienced crew chiefs? And does a track like this eliminate that, where aero isn't such a big deal? Cars run up front without grills on them.
Yeah. Aero, as much as you wouldn't think it matters here, I think it matters everywhere. It just matters a lot less here. So, I think you can take some damage and things and still run good with it here. So I think you can get away with maybe less, this or that from the aero side. A lot of guys do sacrifice downforce in their cars and things for, low light and left weight, and trying to keep everything, the center of gravity low. That is an option that you kind of have coming here. You can take the downforce option, which not many people do because we're going slow and whatnot. So it's kind of short track racing 101 when it comes to that. I feel like that most guys take their cars and do. So I do think that, us having a new body this year has taken some time and has been taking some getting used to and some development, and it's a big change, and doesn't necessarily look like it from TV, but all your aero maps and all of your numbers that you've been crunching for years, all that stuff's different, and it's not fair to run 4 or 5 races, whatever we run, and put a label on us yet, So I think we've seen it before. People have manufacturer changes, or not manufacturer changes, but body changes within their manufacturer, and it takes some time to develop that stuff. So I do think that it could be related to that, but I think that it takes time.
All right, we'll finish with Dustin in the front.
I had a couple questions. Dustin Long, NBC Sports. In talking about Jimmie, you mentioned one of the greatest, and then you kind of said, I'd say the best ever, without question. One of the great things about sports is the ability to debate different things. So I'm sure there would be some Richard Petty or Dale Earnhardt fans that would debate you. Can you explain a little bit further, first off, why you would rate Jimmie, or what do you see out of Jimmie more so if you were explaining it to a Dale Earnhardt or a Richard Petty fan?
Yeah, I mean, I think just and I think there's a lot of things that factor in, but one thing I look at is winning 5 championships in a row is pretty impressive in my opinion, and now he's walked in the room, so the pressure's on. But I think it's just an opinion, and I have my opinion on that, and I just don't see those other guys in the same situation. I just handed, and I'm not taking anything away from them. All legends of the sport, right? But I just don't see anybody competing with what he's done in the short amount of time he's been here.
I also wanted to ask you about your reaction last fall at the end of the race. I understand that's all in the heat of the moment, but I guess my question would be, would you have felt as comfortable doing something like that 6 months earlier, a year earlier? I think as you've kind of grown and developed, as a rookie develops, they kind of start to feel a little bit more, I don't know, of confidence or assured of themselves. When you look back at what you did, how was it that it came to that, and could it have happened sooner, or was it where you were at that? Because this was the first time I think a lot of fans saw you in that way, and kind of emotional and standing up in a public way that they hadn't seen before. Can you kind of explain how maybe you kind of developed to get to that point, please?
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, just because you don't see something doesn't necessarily mean that's not there. I frankly don't think I've really changed a lot over the course of my time here. So, yeah. Yeah, I think it was just the way the circumstances played. But I think if that had happened 6 months before, my reaction would have been the same, and I would have gone about it very similarly, or even a year before. I think whether you're a rookie or in your second year, I don't, just because you're a rookie doesn't mean that that's okay, in my opinion. So, I think that when you get to this point, yes, you might have a stripe on the back of your car, but I mean, you're here for a reason, and you have the opportunity because you know how to race, and that you've done a lot of racing to this point. So you might have the yellow stripe, but man, there's a lot of experience that you have when you get to this point, and I think some people forget that sometimes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Chase, and good luck this weekend.
Thanks.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started with our second media availability of this morning. We're now joined by Jimmie Johnson, driver of the number 48 Lowe's for Pro Chevrolet. Jimmie, you've had 9 career wins here. What do you have to do to get your 10th?
I think survive the snowstorm. See what happens with the weather. I don't know. And when it's warm here, there's a certain amount of rubber that gets laid down on the track that we all anticipate. With the cooler temps, I think being smart and trying to understand how much the track will change, if much at all, because of the cooler temps. I know we'll have hopefully some sun tomorrow, but that's really going to be kind of the guessing game, is how the car will change as the race progresses, and all that's really based on how much rubber goes down. So we'll keep a close eye on that. We've had a good record here at judging that stuff. And we're excited to be here at one of my best tracks and looking forward to getting out there.
We're going to open up the questions. We'll go here in the front and make our way to the back.
Mike Hembry, USA Today. No less a judge than Chase Elliott has just proclaimed you the greatest NASCAR driver of all time. So I want you to know that in case you missed it.
I'll take it.
When it's, regardless of the track conditions and how the car responds, when it's really cold in a race, like it apparently is going to be tomorrow or whenever we race, do you know that much about that in the car? Is it cold in the car, or is it just when it's like in the 40s, is it better for you really?
Yeah, the air temp does make a difference in the car. Certainly a cooler environment outside means a cooler environment inside. I think humidity has a really large role in that. For whatever reason, like we'll go to New Hampshire and it's not all that warm, but pretty thick air. And you always get hot and cooked and worked hard in the car there. I don't think we'll have that problem here today, but just kind of on a side note, I think humidity is probably one of the bigger issues that we deal with. So it'll be a little easier on the equipment. Brakes will cool better, engines will cool better. Crew chiefs will probably put more tape on though to get it back up to that optimum area. I think at the end of the day, the hardest thing is going to be, if we do qualify, just getting enough tire temp so that you can put down a lap in a few laps. Laps on the tires do affect things here. Restarts will be kind of tricky with the colder temps. So I really feel tire-related temperatures will be the biggest hurdle to deal with cool temps. And after that, it just makes life easier for the rest of the areas.
We'll go next to Caleb.
Caleb Whistler, kicking the tires. With next weekend being Easter, what are your Easter plans and your thoughts going into Texas with year 2 of the repave?
Yeah, we're definitely going to take some time and hopefully head out on a trip Monday if we're not here racing. But back for Easter. We want to have Easter in Charlotte and be home and enjoy kind of a slow week leading into another long stretch of racing and head over to Texas.
Okay, we'll go here in the back.
Brian Nelson with Motor Racing Network. Jimmie, when you talk about, I guess today's forecast looks like the deeper we get in the afternoon, the greater the opportunity for weather. So as you've kind of laid out a practice strategy, is qualifying canceled a foregone conclusion for the 48 team, and how does that impact your practice, whether you're working on race strategy most of the day or qualifying, and what would having no opportunity to qualify mean to how you run the race?
Yeah, I would like to qualify. I think we'd start better than wherever we're on point 17th or 18th, whatever it is. So that's going to hurt on pit stall pick, and then obviously track position to start the race. So that element, I'd love to have the opportunity to have a better shot and work my way forward. Fortunately, though, this is an impound race, so I think the entire field, everybody will be in race trim, and if you get a chance with 10 minutes remaining of the second practice, try to run a Q lap or something and get a balance check there. So I think the schedule plays into, or it just favors everybody, makes it a little easier. The rhythm is kind of already set in place, and regardless of the weather, we'll all be running race laps.
We'll go next here.
Yeah, Jimmie, Al Pearson Auto Week. The 2,000-pound elephant in this room is that you have not won since last June, longest slump of your career. Does that puzzle you or embarrass you or make you call into your mind, maybe I'm not what I used to be? Or is it just circumstances that for 29 weekends you have not gotten to victory lane?
I kind of chuckle. Only 29 races, Yeah, I won 3 last year. I guess so. I don't think that way. At the end of last year, there was layers of high frustration and some embarrassment that we just couldn't get things going in the right direction. This year we've improved every week and have seen great strides. So I'm very optimistic that success is out there in front of us and around the corner. But I through it all, I live in the moment and understand where I am, where our team is, and what we're dealing with as a company. And I know the journey that we're on. I know what's happening internally to build a better product, to better use our resources, to build a better think tank, if you will, and how all the crew chiefs work together. So there's a journey of growth right now going on at the company. So sure, I'm reminded every week of a streak that's not one that you want to be reminded of. But I'm not losing sleep over it. I know I'm going to win races. I know this team's going to win races. I know we're going to compete for championships. It's just getting all of our stuff right. I think people often take for granted how competitive pro sports are and how competitive this garage area is. And although we've been able to do some pretty amazing things that have never been done before, I think it's unfair to think and to believe that it can last forever. What we did to win 5 in a row was pretty darn special. No one's ever done that before. Cale won 3 in a row would be the next closest one. So I do hold myself to a very high level of expectation, but I just think that in society today it's really easy. It doesn't matter if it's our sport or another sport. It's just there's some unfair expectations put on people and on teams and individuals, and I just think people often forget how difficult it is to compete at a pro level.
Thank you.
Yep.
We'll go here in the front.
John Haverland with ESPN Albuquerque. Away from the racetrack, what has been like your favorite memory or favorite experience being associated with Lowe's? Like, is there any sponsorship appearance that ever stood out to your mind, like a funny memory, anything like that?
Yeah, with Lowe's, I mean, they've been such a supporter of the Jimmie Johnson Foundation and have given back to communities far and wide and for various reasons. I mean, there are a lot of very heartfelt moments helping people with wildfires, tornado efforts, the hurricane effort. The employees at Lowe's always amaze me. Their willingness to jump in and help in their community or in their area. After hours, during store hours, I mean, there's just countless stories. So I've always had a lot of pride to work for the company and to know and see those stories that take place. And that's on a deeper level, but a fun kind of level. Let's see, right before the season started, we were in Las Vegas for their national sales meeting, and they had a big function where they built, I can't remember, 1,000 bicycles for the Boys and Girls Club in the area. And to have every single store manager in that room from North America, I think it was 3,500 people running across this huge floor, building bikes, taking them to their check stations to be inspected, and just the whole process. I know some saw what I posted with that. That was so much fun and just a blast and chaos all on a big building with a bunch of adults running around helping kids out. So, many things across the board.
That was this year?
That was this year, yeah.
We'll go here to the middle.
Mark Garrow, PR, and Jimmie, just looking ahead to Texas, you've had a few super speedway races under the Camaro here so far. I mean, how do you guys feel going to Texas, aero package, speed, and do you have what it takes to kind of just keep inching yourself a little bit forward?
Yeah, I definitely feel like we're moving forward. The way the car drove in California, in traffic, out of traffic, the balance between the two situations was really good for us. I was able to pass a lot of cars. Certainly need more speed, but we're developing our product each and every week. So last year, the spring race in Texas was really good to us, and we obviously have high hopes going back there as well.
All right, we'll round it up in the front with Jeff.
Jeff Gluck from jeffgluck.com. So when it's this cold outside and you're in the car, I know you said the effects it has on the car, but like, do your hands get cold, or is it one of those things where you're working out so much that you don't feel the temperature? Like, does that have any effect on you personally?
Sure. Once climbing in the car, everything's cool the first time. Probably 5 laps in, the heat soak from the transmission, the engine, the exhaust pipes, and plus and they're working. All that comes up to temp, and you're pretty warm from that point. Warm enough to start sweating. Wherever there's air blowing at you, sure, that's probably on the cool side, but you do get up to temp pretty quick. And our cars are just big heaters. We do have some heat shielding going on to protect the foot box, but per NASCAR rules, everything is steel, and steel's a great conductor of heat. So within 15, 20 minutes, regardless of the outside air temp, you're sweating pretty good in the car. I won't today. I wear it in the race. It's just kind of the way our cars are built and plumbed and wired and all that kind of stuff. So I'll wear it in the race, but definitely not today.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jimmie, and good
Cool.
luck this
Thank you.
weekend.